Good morning, everyone. My name is Em Hall, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the president of Transport Chicago. Our organization is advancing transportation excellence by creating an accessible platform where practitioners, researchers, and emerging professionals converge to share knowledge, build relationships, and shape the future of mobility in Chicago and beyond. And we are so glad to see you all here today. We often hear folks say, only half jokingly, that Transport Chicago feels like a giant family reunion. More specifically, it's the family members that you actually want to spend time with who show up here. And that's something very special. 2026 marks our 41st year, and as always, Transport Chicago continues to reinvent itself. For those of you who joined us at any of our pre-conference events, whether it was riding the vintage rails with the Union League Club, learning in Logan Square, or slow rolling through the streets of North Lawndale, thank you. As incredibly valuable as it is to gather in this space for this conference, we also aim to continue to branch out and explore our communities more and more. Transport Chicago envisions a future where Chicago leads in transportation innovation, driven by a vibrant community of professionals and researchers, all of you, who collaborate across disciplines to create mobility solutions that enhance the quality of life for all. Today is a celebration of that work and a reminder of all that remains to achieve our collective vision. Today is also, sadly, a day to mourn for one of our own. There should be another seat at these tables. At this time, I'd like to invite to the podium the Assistant Commissioner at the Chicago Department of Transportation, David Poe, who will share some words on the life and impact of Riley O'Neill.
Good morning, everybody. Before we begin today, I'd like to take a few moments to remember our friend and colleague, Riley O'Neill. Many of you knew Riley. Many of you worked with him. And even if you didn't know his name, there's a good chance you benefited from his work. In fact, if you rode your bike here this morning, parked at a bike rack, docked into a divvy station, waited at a bus stop, crossed a safer intersection, or traveled along a street that was recently improved, there's a chance that Riley had a hand in it. His fingerprints are all over his hometown, Chicago. Not because he was seeking recognition, quite the opposite. Riley was the kind of public servant who cared far more about making things better than making sure people knew he was the one who did it. Riley was a transportation planner at CDOT. He worked on bike infrastructure, bus priority projects, school safety improvements, bike parking, and countless other efforts to make Chicago safer and easier to navigate. He passed away last week after being struck while riding his bicycle. Our team is still processing this loss. I've spent the last week reading messages from colleagues, advocates, consultants, agency partners, elected officials, and friends. The thing that stands out most is that almost nobody talks first about Riley's accomplishments. They talk about Riley. They talk about his kindness, his generosity, his patience, his ability to bring people together, his belief that everybody deserved respect. Whether they were a commissioner, a consultant, the person that worked at the front desk, a community advocate, or a resident attending their first public meeting. In transportation, we spend a lot of time talking about projects. We talk about miles of bus lanes, bike lanes, signal timing, crash reductions, capital budgets. Riley cared about all of those things, but what made him special was that he never lost sight of who those projects were for. To Riley, transportation wasn't an abstract policy challenge. It was a little kid getting safely to school. It was someone with a disability crossing the street. It was a bus rider getting home faster on Western. It was a cyclist who deserved to arrive alive. Every project was ultimately about people, and Riley cared about people a lot. One of the strange things about losing somebody in this profession is that you keep running into them. You see a Riley rack they helped install. You ride down a bike corridor that they worked on. You pass a school where they fought for safer streets. You Lock your divvy bike to something they helped put in the ground years ago. Riley's work is woven into the fabric of Chicago. His fingerprints are on 1,000 of small pieces of infrastructure that most people won't ever think twice about. But because of that work, people are safer. People get where they're going more easily, and people have choices they didn't have before. That's an extraordinary legacy for somebody to leave behind. But what I'll remember most isn't a specific project. I'll remember how Riley made people feel. He was the kind of colleague who made every team better, the kind of person who volunteered for the difficult assignment, the kind of planner who cared more about getting the right outcome than getting the credit, the kind of friend who showed up, and he showed up a lot for so many people in this room. And that's why his loss has been felt so deeply across Chicago's transportation community. Because Riley wasn't just respected, he was loved. And we gathered to talk about the future of transportation in Chicago, and I think it's worth reflecting on the values Riley brought to his work. Curiosity, humility, humor, and public service. Belief that our streets can be safer, that our workplace can be more fun and accepting and enjoyable, a belief that our city can be better, and a belief that the work we do matters because the people we serve matter. Our community is often described as small. Over the past week, we've seen just how true that is. People from every corner of this field have reached out to share stories about Riley and to support one another. The outpouring of love has been extraordinary. It's also been a reminder that while our projects endure, our relationships matter the most. I want to close with this. Public service sometimes feels invisible. The best work often goes unnoticed. Most people will never know who designed a safer intersection, added a Riley rack, improved a bus route, or made a school crossing safer, but they benefited from it every day. Riley understood that. He dedicated his career to making Chicago better, not for recognition, but because he genuinely believed people deserve safe, reliable, dignified ways to move around the city. And because of that, his work will continue long after we're gone. In the streets we build, in the infrastructure we maintain, in the projects we carry forward, and in the countless Chicagoans who will never know his name, but whose lives are so much better because he was here. Thank you, and thank you for helping us remember our friend, Riley.
Thank you so much, David. You know, when one of our lights is extinguished, it's incumbent upon the rest of us to shine a little brighter. Times like these can feel frustrating and overwhelming, and you might be wondering if there's anything that you can do. Well, there is. Later in the program, we'll share some opportunities to honor Riley's life, learn more about the programs and policies that are being put into place to further increase safety for all road users, and provide you some ways to take action. So, one of the most fun parts about Transport Chicago is the high level of engagement we get from students across the region and even across the country. We've long been committed to cultivating the next generation of transportation professionals. Another person who is committed to the next generation is Leslie Richards, who is our keynote speaker this morning. She currently serves as a professor of practice at the University of Pennsylvania, where she bridges academic research with real-world policy and infrastructure needs. You might also know Leslie from her roles such as Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation and CEO General Manager of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. Throughout her career, Leslie has prioritized accessibility, sustainability, and collaboration, driving billions of dollars in investment to improve mobility and strengthen communities. Last year, she launched the Transportation Initiative at Penn, or TRIP, a university-wide effort to co-create innovative, scalable transportation solutions by connecting scholars, students, public agencies, and private partners. Housed within the Penn Institute for Urban Research, TRIP is poised to become a national model for applied impact and cross-sector collaboration in the transportation field. We are so honored to get to learn more about TRIP, PennDOT, SEPTA, and all the other acronyms from Leslie this morning. Leslie, welcome to Transport Chicago.
Good morning, everyone. And I just want to thank David for sharing those beautiful words about Riley. While I never knew him, unfortunately, there are so many others like him in other states that I visited, and in my own Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as well. Not to minimize him, he's an individual, very, very special person, but there's just way too many deaths to those who are bicycling and cycling their way as their way to get around. And I promise you, on my way to the airport after today, I'm going to check out some of the bike lanes and think of Riley and the bike racks. And we do need to be safer. Part of what I wanted to talk about is just to remind everyone how important our work is, and I think you did it just so beautifully. So I'm done now, and I can sit down. But I am really thrilled to be here, and it is just so nice to see this packed room. And I have to say, this packed room of a much younger audience than I am used to speaking to, which is very, very exciting. And what you have going on here in Chicago needs to be replicated in other states. I'm definitely going to go back to Philadelphia and let them know what you guys have been going on here for 40 years now. This is just so special, and I can see the excitement of everybody being here. And I loved the words of, you get to be with the family you actually like. We know who those people are. But before I begin, I also want to thank two of my former students who reached out to see if I could come here. It means so much to me. So Michael and Grace, thank you so much for inviting me here. I have another recent student, Ebony, who's here as well, who's presenting at the poster session. I see you in the back. And it's just really wonderful. If there's anyone else who I've crossed paths with at Penn who I haven't seen yet, please come to me before I leave. At the university where I teach, the last class of every semester, we do an AMA class, which is an Ask Me Anything class. And so I asked the committee here today if I could do that at the end of this. So we're going to leave some time. If there's anything that I speak about that you have any question whatsoever about anything, and I'm going to touch on it, about being in politics, about working with politicians, about running a large public agency, about taking time off to raise children, anything at all, I'm happy to answer it. And so I'm looking at Em to make sure, give me, when there's maybe 10 minutes left, just give me, say stop talking so that I can make sure that we have enough time. So I want to start off with something extremely exciting that's happening here in Chicago. I'm sure you're excited about it. And that is, that 11 days ago, the Northern Illinois Transit Authority Act took effect. And trust me, yes, I think that deserves, right? As someone who has never been in the position where I was not worried about funding, where I was not worried about the structure of an organization, where I was not worried about decision makers coming together and collaborating and being on the same page, you have no idea how NETA is resonating throughout the entire country. And we are all rooting for you. And we are all extremely excited at this moment about the significant transformation that is about to take place here in Chicago, about the service improvements that are going to be rolled out, about the tens of millions of dollars that are going to be put into safety and security investments. We're excited to see who's going to be on the new board in a few months. And you are all sitting in this room right now at the beginning of something really special. And I've been asked to talk about my career, and there's been so many times when I've been at the beginning of something special, and I know how this feels. And you learn so much. And transformations like this one, at this scale, you learn and you grow your careers, and you learn about the gap between what we plan and what we actually end up building, right? You might think we're going in one direction, and we might end up going in a different direction. But we're all going to be working on that together. So I do want to start with a quote that's a little bit unexpected. And the reason it's unexpected is it came to me through a fortune cookie. And the week before I was sworn in, or actually I started as PennDOT secretary, we took our family to a Chinese restaurant. and we're talking about what's ahead and, when I would be around, when I probably wouldn't be around. And I open my fortune cookie, and the fortune cookie says, when you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I thought, I think there's a message in this one. Put it in my pocket, and I kept it. Of course, now I was in charge of all the roads of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So I figured, well, which one's going to take me, where I want to go. But I do think that's been a common theme in my life and in my career trajectory. I imagine many of you feel the same way. And the good news is there's a real comfort in that, because no matter where you're going, you know you're going to be going somewhere good. You just might not know exactly where it is. And for some of us, that's a little hard. And for some of us, it's very freeing and liberating, because we don't have to worry about that. So let me start a little bit about where I started. So I went into undergrad as a math major. I'm not sure what I would do with it, but I know I liked math. Well, I got there, and it became very clear that I didn't like math enough to spend time with math majors for 4 years. So I ended up, after trying a few things, graduating with an urban studies and an economics degree. And I knew that I loved my classes that dealt with how do cities work. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. So, of course, I take the first job I get, which is in insurance. And I am an underwriter, and I'm underwriting construction. I know, I have a feeling like I want to build things, but I don't know what, so I start out insuring them. Ends up, I insure a building in North Carolina right before a hurricane comes in and hits it and destroys it. Costs the company quite a bit. And I go in for my first performance review with a manager who I really like. We go out to drinks after work every Thursday and Friday. We play on a soccer team together, we're on a softball team. And she says, Leslie, do you like this job? And I said, it's okay, I was honest. And she goes, well, that's good, because you're really not that good at it. And I was like, wow, I've never really been told I'm not that good at something, and I don't know how I feel about that. And that's my first lesson I want to pass on to you, is when someone gives you constructive criticism, when someone sees something in you and tells you, believe it and take it. I wasn't that good at it, and I didn't really love it. It was a job. And thank goodness she said that, because then I went back to school and found a job that I really loved and a career I really loved. I went back, I got a master's in environmental planning, and really changed the trajectory of my life. My first job, I was into air quality, water quality, was with the EPA, got to work on all of those things. It was very exciting. There was this thing called Mosaic. I'm going to age myself right now, but there was this thing called Mosaic where I could talk to employees of the federal government who were in different states and far away from me. And within 6 months, it became the internet, and that was email. And I did, we were testing it all out. This was in the very early 90s. And it was a very exciting time. And the reason that I mention it right now, not to say how old I am, and all of you are like, really, there was no internet? When you're like I went to school without laptops. I went to school, without being able to Google things. But now we're at an exciting time, too, with AI and all the other technology that's coming. It feels as exciting. It feels as changing as that is. And so these changes have been coming, and people have been able to experience that. I also worked for our Philadelphia City Planning Commission for a while, for our Central Philadelphia Development Corporation, and then I stopped, and I was a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. I'm not saying I didn't work very hard for 8 years, I just really didn't get paid well, and it was very, very tough work. But it was 8 years where I wasn't in the game of building my career, and I really think it's important to say that. And that's the second lesson that I want to make sure that everyone hears, that sometimes you take a detour that you don't expect. I actually didn't even expect to stay home. I thought I would go back to work, and I kept saying, oh, I'll be back in a month. I'll be back in 3 months. And they're like, Leslie, you're probably not coming back. And I was like, no, I'm not going to come back. But I didn't even know it at the time. I was trying to figure it out myself. But it's okay. It's okay to stop. It's okay to do other things. It's okay to come back. And when I did come back, I was lucky enough, I applied for a job at an environmental consulting firm and got hired. Of course, I had started my career when the internet just came about. Imagine those 8 years, right, how that had grown, and I had not been in the field. And my specialty was spatial analytics. It was like GIS, the first wave of GIS, where you had to program everything. So I wasn't really equipped to do anything, but I interviewed, and thank goodness I got my crack at my very first big transportation project. And that was the I-95 connection to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which was the last piece of 95 from Maine to Florida. And it was a big project, just like NETA, just like a lot. It was like a career-making project. And I was so lucky to be connected to it. At the same time, while I was at home, I don't want you to think that those 8 years were wasted. I got involved in my community. I really enjoyed knowing my neighbors. I really loved seeing, what made my neighborhood better. And I got involved in White Marsh Township Day. I lived in White Marsh Township. I ran the pony rides. I did the prize booth. I got to know my neighbors in different ways. And because of those connections, I then got onto another path. So while I wasn't doing it to build my career, it was doing that for me, helping me with my network. So while I was working in the environmental consulting firm, I then got reached out to, and I was asked, do you want to join our Park and Rec board? You've done a great job at Township Day. Then I was asked, do you want to chair our Park and Rec board? Then I was asked, do you want to chair our network park plan? Then I was asked, do you want to join our planning commission? And then so the next lesson that I want to put in there is sometimes you have to be asked and just say yes, even if you don't know if you're ready for it or not. So the next question I was asked was, do you want to run for office? Do you want to run for White Marsh Township Supervisor? Which I was like, no. They asked me 3 times. But finally, I said yes with the encouragement of my family and my spouse. We ran. The very first meeting, we all said we ran. So there's 5 supervisors, either 3 are running or 2 are running every other year. And at the time, I'm a Democrat. At the time, it was majority Republican in my township, and there had never been a majority Democrat supervisor board. But there were 3 up. So if all 3 of us won, we would get the majority. We felt like we were close. We were getting close. Anyway, we knocked on every door. We called everyone we could. We raised as much money as we could. And to our surprise, and I think to the townships, we all won. And we had made an agreement that whoever got the most votes would become the chair of the board, since none of us had any experience with any of this before. Because I had the most kids and because I had been involved in Township Day in the Park and Rec, I got the most votes. So my very first day, I am chair of the board. We do a few meetings. I am getting yelled at. I'm getting screamed at. People don't understand. We're making changes. And for those of you who are Parks and Rec fan, Amy Poehler, I'm a big Leslie Knope fan. People were screaming and caring. They were caring very loudly at me at all of these meetings. And I went home to my husband and I thought, oh my gosh, I worked so hard for this, but I'm not really good at it. And it's not that fun. People are screaming at me all the time. And my husband says to me, he said, Leslie, if you don't feel like you know what you're doing, he said, I can't imagine that the other supervisors know what they're doing. And that's all I needed to know. So then I went back to the next meeting and I looked at the supervisors with me, the 2 remaining Republican supervisors, the 2 new Democrats supervisors who I ran with. And I realized, you know what? No one here has superpowers. Everyone here cares for their community in different ways. Everyone has different ways in where they think the best route for the community is. And we're all here trying to do the best job for our neighbors, for our families. And after I realized that, it was very freeing. And so the third lesson I want to leave you with is there are just times when you feel like you won't be the right person for the job. But just sit in the seat, and you're going to learn, and you're going to figure it out. And so I love that. It also gave me my second big project to work on. And this was the preservation of a 400-acre farm in our township. The owner had died unexpectedly, and the township had 1 year, the right of first refusal to make a deal and to give his estate the appraised value of 400 acres of farmland. You can imagine we're the first township, by the way, we're adjacent to Philadelphia, so very densely populated. It's called White Marsh, so huge flooding problems. And if 400 acres had been developed, our schools would have been overrun. We would have had to build new school buildings. Our flooding would have increased. Our traffic would have been, terrible. Really a lot lying on our shoulders. Luckily, I did not know how hard this job would be. So we had to reach out to federal, state, local. I had to go in front of county commissioners who I found out what they do, and that'll become important in a minute. Anyway, every time I picked up the phone, thank God someone answered. Every time I asked for help, thank God somebody came and helped me. There was no playbook here, and we figured it out. We found a gentleman farmer who didn't mind losing $1 million a year to farm this land. We found conservation agencies who would take not the whole thing, but maybe 50 acres here, maybe 100 acres here. We put the pieces together. We worked with the school board, with tax increment financing. Anyway, we put it together. In hindsight, if I would have known how hard it was, I'm not sure I would have started the job, but thank goodness I didn't know. And we put it together. So the next lesson is, you may not know how you're going to finish the job, but you have to start it, and the pieces will start to fall into place and get there. And so I was really thrilled. And it also taught me that when you show up to a difficult discussion, figure out who you are, right? I didn't come as an adversary. I didn't come as someone who wanted to make a deal. I came to those discussions as a neighbor. And I would talk as a neighbor and how I cared about the development. And that's how we got all these different perspectives together. And I think, and that is definitely something that has continued with me throughout my career, just trying to figure out what perspective is it that you can present that will bring people together and get you there. So from White Marsh Township Supervisor, I told you I went in front of the county to get some open space money. And I found out, there's this job called County Commissioner, and it's during the day, and you get paid. And there's a planning commission, and there's economic development corporation, and there's roads, and there's bridges, and there's parks, and there's infrastructure. And I came home, and I was like, I think I'm going to throw my name in for that. And then, long story short, it was a similar story like the township. It had been Republican majority for a very long time, Republican majority in the county. They thought it was like right at the time. I ran with a gentleman, you may have heard of him. His name is Josh Shapiro. I call him now Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania. We ran as a team for Montgomery County Commissioner, and we won. And we got to do some really, really good work together. And I'm very, very grateful for learning all those lessons as well. And obviously, when I talk to politicians, having been one is very helpful. That opportunity then opened up, became friendly with a gentleman by the name of Tom Wolf, who becomes the governor right before Governor Shapiro. And after getting to know him, and he wins and is filling out his cabinet, I get selected as his choice to run the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and I get to be in his cabinet. And that was just a fantastic experience. I get to care about the communities that I've worked in. I get to, visit all of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I get to be the first female and the first planner to ever lead the Department of Transportation in Pennsylvania. Very different perspective than anyone who's been in that seat. Thank you. And I get to bring that perspective. And one of the things I am most proud of, again, just like NETA is here in Chicago, is there wasn't any true planning happening at PennDOT. The planning was all with investments and funding and where did money go. And even the director of planning, and there was a deputy secretary of planning. They really just dealt with the tip and I shouldn't say just, it's a big job, but we weren't going out to the communities. We weren't seeing what they wanted in their projects. PennDOT was always seen as like a pain in the neck when PennDOT would come into the communities. And so I remember having a conversation with one of the engineers, someone I was friendly with, and I kept asking him, I said, well, did you look at the comprehensive plan before you went in with that bridge design? Did you look at where they want to go with their economic development plan? Did you look at any strategic plan that they put together and what type of community they want to be in a few years? And he's looking at me, he's like, no, I just designed the bridge. Very good engineer, by the way. And so I said, look, do me a favor. Go to your next project, and I don't want you to come with a drawing. And he's like, well, what will I talk to? What will I talk about if I don't have a design to show them? And I said, you're going to listen to them. You're going to listen to them about what does this asset mean to their community. Because trust me, they have ideas. Is it what people use to get to school? Is there a walking path next to it? Is it for, it just happened, I don't know if you know what Wawa is. It just so happened that this bridge connected a school to a Wawa, which was a big deal. So where the kids would run for lunch and, all these things you don't know when you're looking at topo maps or when you're looking at seeing, where your bridge needs to be connected to the approach roadway or whatever it is. And then I didn't hear from him in a few weeks, and I was like, oh, that didn't go well. He's not liking me right now. And anyway, he came back into my office about 3-4 weeks later, and he said, you were right. And he shows me the bridge that he designed, and he goes, this is not the bridge I would have designed if I had done it before I spoke to that community. And he said, you're going to make us all better engineers. And that's when I knew we were doing something really special. And then he was able to take that message to the other engineers. Trust me, there were some that still don't like the idea and are pushing back, but he was able to take that there. And then we developed PennDOT Connects, where we go into municipalities, we ask them, what does our asset mean? Is it a gateway to their community? Is it a walkway for children? Is it important for economic development? Is it something that tourists really need, during the busy tourist season, if that's the type of town it is? It's in 750 different municipalities now. 1,850 projects have used this process. We ask people at the end, would you have us back? It's a tough question to ask. How many people in the beginning said no, like without even thinking, but now they're like, yeah, we would. You were good to work with, right? And that is the goal, right? We want to be partners. And it's still being used today. It outlasted my tenure. Makes me feel really good that the secretaries who have followed me have kept it. And I do think that it's getting better projects throughout the Commonwealth. Then I get the opportunity to be the general manager and CEO of SEPTA. I leave PennDOT after being with the Wolf administration for 5 years. I come into SEPTA, I'm so excited. I'm gonna work on equity. I'm gonna work on getting some of our most disadvantaged neighborhoods in my hometown of Philadelphia, and we are gonna make sure that we have transfers and that we have easy payment systems and we have better signage, and we're gonna do a bus network redesign. And I have this whole 100-day plan, and then at around day 58, COVID hits. So I don't get through my 100-day plan. And all of a sudden, the job that I took becomes a much different job. And by the way, it's a job that nobody in the world knew how to do. How do you run a large transit agency during a global pandemic? Part of that was the scariest thing ever I had heard, and part of that was, well, thank goodness no one knows what they're doing. I definitely don't know what I'm doing. And so I also learned a very, very important lesson here. And that was, what is it that we have all these new challenges, and how can I start, just step by step, trying to figure this out, just like we did at Ernheim Farm, just like we did with PennDOT Connects. And so we had an issue, like many cities, and I know Chicago did because I spoke to Dorval Carter quite a bit about it. And that was, we had those who were experiencing homelessness, mental health challenges, drug addiction. They were just inundating our system. They were destination-less. They were riding our system. They were not getting off. They were in on our platforms. They were in our stations. And they had nowhere to go. All their safety nets were falling through as well. Our employees also weren't able to do their job. The people who needed us, we could not be available for them. And I didn't know what to do. And after I just figured, you know what? I am the thing that I can do is I can make 2 calls a day. And so that's what I did. I made 2 calls a day to my friends who worked in housing, to my friends who worked in mental health, to my friends who worked in drug addiction, to my friends who set up shelters, right? I had friends from the county government, I had friends from the state government, I had friends in other transit agencies. And we put together a scope program where we partnered with social services, with experts in mental health care and drug addiction. It also had a police component to it. It was really important for the employees to feel safe as well. And it ended up winning a national award, the Innovation Award at APTA. We were very, very happy about it. And that was the 5th lesson that I want to pass on, is that ask for help when you need it. I was presenting to the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce, the largest group of influential CEOs, and I would get up there and be like, I don't know what to do. I would tell them that I had to admit. And guess what? They were so receptive. I had the presidents of Penn Medicine reach out to me, Drexel University reach out to me, Wawa reach out to me, which then, my kids thought I was the coolest person ever. And they're like, how can we help you? What can we do? Everyone came together, and we put together this program. And so that was really, really helpful. And then I get to my current exciting work at the University of Pennsylvania. Is that 5 minutes left? Oh, anyway, so I got Trip at Pennsylvania, and it's a wonderful opportunity. I have an advisory board. I'm teaching at Penn. I have an advisory board of 25 current CEOs that run airports, ports, tollways, transit agencies, state DOTs, city DOTs. And we ask them about their current pain points. We ask them what are the problems they're having, and we're matching them with research. Research that can be done within 6 months to give them the help they need to solve these problems. And then we have private sector sponsors, which are also helping us get to those answers. It's this wonderful, trusted relationship. Again, it's a gap that no one was doing. It's the help that I would have wanted at PennDOT and at SEPTA, and I wanted to be able to get this actionable, useful information. And so I'm extremely excited about this work. And I'm very excited about the work that you're all about to embark on with NEDA and what's happening here in Chicago. I was going to go on a little bit about how much your work matters, and please don't ever forget that, but I really think we all spent the morning with remembering Riley in such a meaningful way that we all know that our work matters and that this is important work. And so all I can tell you is make sure that you ask for help when you need it. Make sure you don't doubt yourself, right? Take that seat and do what you can. And just show up every day, even if you're not really sure where you're going. You're going to end up in a good place. And so with that, I am open up to questions. If anybody has any, I'm happy to answer them as quickly as I can. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't know if we have a microphone, but if you say it out loud, I can repeat it into the microphone. In the middle there, we have a question. Okay, great.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for your comments. Really interesting.
Sure.
And congratulations on all of the remarkable ceilings you've broken
Thank you.
for the female planners in the room.
Yeah.
Mary, I work at Chicago Department of Transportation. I lead our division of planning and policy, and we think about our work as preparing the city for emerging technologies and opportunities. I was wondering if we can work with your team at UPenn.
Oh, that's like the best comment I've ever had. I did not plant that. First of all, I also want to say when I speak to younger people, the fact that you just thanked me, I cannot even tell you how much that means. And so I am going to give everybody homework in this room now that I'm a professor. And that is, it's really important. Don't assume that people who have, you might think they've made it, or you might think they have the best job, or you might think like, oh, what a career. Let them know when their work means something to you, because it's not obvious to us. And just think about you. You've probably helped so many people in your career too, and it may not be obvious to you how you help people. So that's my homework to you, to do that. And yes, let's definitely trade information. And I know Em and Patrick and Grace and Michael, they all have my contact information. And so anyone who has my cell or my email, everyone can share it. I feel like the whole world has it at this moment, but I'll make sure that the steering committee has it. And yes, please, let's keep in touch.
Thank you.
Anyone? I see a hand over there.
Hi, I'm not young, so I hope you'll take my question.
You're younger than I am, so go ahead.
Maybe not. I'm very glad that you came and talked about all of your career and especially the 8 years you were working as a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
I also was a stay-at-home mom, and then got involved in transportation planning because I didn't have a civil engineering degree, but I also did almost a math degree and a bunch of others. What I would be interested in is how hard was it to transfer from one organization to the next, one role to the next, and did people come after you because you were good at a lot of what you did, obviously, and wanted you to keep working for them? You know what I'm saying?
Well, okay. I think I do, and if I don't answer your question, you let me know.
Okay.
So it was very hard. It is always hard to make a transition, right? And it's not the safe choice, right? It's the uncomfortable choice to do that. It's always hard to build a new team. It's exhausting, actually, to get the right people around you so that you can do the work that you want to do. I am a big believer, and I so respect those, and I'm sure there's many people in this room who have been in the same company or a similar career for 10, 20, 30, maybe they build their whole careers in the same company. That's never been my, what was right for me. I always liked to come in, let people know what I wanted to do, if I was the right fit for them. And trust me, I've interviewed for jobs that I did not get. I'm still sad and bitter about some of them, but I'm getting through it. But when I come in, I'm very clear. And it takes a few years to develop that, and then I want to hand it off. When you get some of these really large jobs, I feel like you're in a running race. Like, you take the baton from the person who had it, you do your best that you can, you hand the baton to the next person and let them do it. I personally think if you're in a job for too long at those high levels, your perspective's there, and then let someone else take it, because you can't always do it from. So that is good. Now, when I left PennDOT, the governor understood. Like, I was so scared to tell him I was leaving, but he understood why I wanted to leave. SEPTA was a different story, and I'm being very vulnerable with you. I knew it was time to leave, and trust me, the board knew it was time to leave. Like, we had run our course, right? We had been in the pandemic together. We had done we had an international cyber attack. We had some really serious stuff that we had to get through, and I was thrilled to be there. And then they wanted to go in a direction that I did not want to. And these jobs are way too hard to stay in and not be able to do the work you're most passionate, or not to be able to do it in a way that you're most passionate about. And really, let me tell you, like, if you're in a job and it is not really exciting you right now, like, please look for something else. There are so many good things out there to do. And so, trust me, they were happy that I left, and I was happy I was left. So they were not begging me to stay. So did that answer your question? Okay. Let's talk after. Okay. Anyone else before our time is ticking? I think we just have a couple here. Is there enough for that, Em? And then are you okay? Okay. Okay. How about we ask both of these together, and I'll answer them as quickly as I can, and then we'll get that one, and we'll be done. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your time. So since you've worked both as a leader of a DOT and then a transportation agency, oftentimes those agencies try to work together, but it doesn't really work out.
Yeah.
So how do you bridge that gap? from your perspective?
Yeah, so it's very unique, right? Not a lot of people have had that opportunity. So PennDOT's the 5th largest DOT in the country, and SEPTA is the 6th largest transit agency in the country. So to be able to do it on that scale is unusual. We have one right now. Phil Eng at MBTA is in both roles right now. So in some ways, it made things a lot easier because I fully understood PennDOT. And I don't want to say I fully understood the PennDOT budget because I don't think anyone can fully understand the PennDOT budget. So complicated. But I understood it at a level that most people don't understand it, like a higher level than most people. And because I knew that, I knew every single dollar that was available to SEPTA. We were able to pull more out of the public transit fund that others could not, only because I had such a good knowledge of it. I was also able to let SEPTA know how hard the PennDOT employees are working and that they should not assume that PennDOT hates SEPTA. And I was able to tell PennDOT that how hard the SEPTA employees are working, and SEPTA does not hate the DOT, because that is like something that is there, right? And so I do feel like I was able to help with that collaboration, and it is unusual. But just like when NETA passed, when you have your governor, when you have your city council, when you have the boards, when you have industry and advocates all on the same page that they can pass something like NETA, it's a very special moment. And when you have a moment in time where your DOT and your transit agency can be on the same board, on the same top, it's a great thing. So I was able to do that, but it's not. I know it's not usual, and it's a shame because these public servants are working so hard and experience a lot of the same thing, plowing snow all through the night in a really bad storm, and driving buses and subways through midnight and showing up, when others can work from home and others have, it's the same. So there's more that's similar than not. And so just trying to untie that, that's what I worked on. Sometimes I was more successful than others. Go ahead. I know we have our next question.
Hey, Alvaro Villagrán with the Shared Use Mobility Center. Thank you very much for bringing up the, not just the woman leading the agency, but the family perspective. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you, we have very limited time, but the family support your work, right? Supported you in your career.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how they inspire you, and how you got feedback from them that you then brought to your work. Yeah. And as a director, of agencies, how you inspire others to also listen not only to their communities, but to their families at home, and bring that to their professional work.
Yeah, like everything's connected. And one of the hardest things was when I was campaigning, especially when I was campaigning with Governor Shapiro. There was a lot on the line. If I didn't win, he wouldn't become the chair of the county. And I know that he had other plans. And so I felt a lot of pressure. So I was out campaigning all the time, which took me away from my family. So I tried, I had 3 young kids at the time. Right now, they're 25, 27, and 30. This is, about 15 years ago. And so always letting them know what I was doing, right? And always including them. If they wanted to come to any events, they could. But I have to say, there was a few committee people who were so amazing, because they would say, well, what's tough? And I would say, being away from my kids is really tough while I'm doing all this stuff. So there was one woman, and never think that there's not a little thing that you can do to be really helpful. There was one woman who would cook brownies, bake brownies. And every time I went to an event, she would even if she couldn't go to the event, there would be brownies waiting from Beverly. It would just be sitting there. Beverly Hahn made you brownies, and they were delicious. And I would bring them home to my kids, to the point where my kids were like, "Don't you have anywhere to go tonight? Don't we? We need brownies. We need brownies." So there was a way to do it. At the bus stop with the kids one morning, I was like, "Oh my God, my kids, they don't have clean underwear. They don't have socks. Like I'm driving myself crazy." The next day at the bus stop, the parents had gone out to BJ's near us and had gotten me 12 packs of socks and underwear for each of my kids. And then I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have the energy to do this again." So, you talk about what. I just feel, be honest, talk about what's being troubling and the people come and help you and engage them in ways that's fun for them. So that's what they do. And then they saw, we built the first ADA accessible park in the township. It was the first one. And one day I'm driving my kids to some sporting event, and I hear my daughter in the back go, "My mom did that park." And I didn't even know that, that's what, and then, it flows, and so that felt really good. So anyway, I know it. One more question, and then I'll get off, and you guys can go learn about amazing things.
Thank you for your kind and encouraging words about NIDA. Any advice for us as we get started? A lot of the people in this room are going to be involved in making NIDA a success. So from your experience, what would you encourage us to keep in mind?
Yeah, first of all, communication. Keep talking to each other, right? And remind, why are you doing this work? Like, and what do you want it to look like at the end, right? Because there's going to be frustrations here and there. But just talk to everybody and assume that everyone has good intentions, right? That you're all here to do this good work. This is like such a special moment here, and a special moment when everyone's on the same page and wants the same thing. I would also reach out if you know someone who's been close to the process, say you're not in the process right now, be like, what can I do to help? How can I be helpful to you? Like, everybody should be, you know, as many people as possible, rowing in the same direction, keeping everybody in touch. When you see someone being run down or difficult situations, and there will be, change is very, very difficult. And when you see someone who's in charge and a big, just be like, I see what you're doing and I appreciate what you're doing, right? I know this isn't easy. Even if they're making a decision you don't agree with, you can let them know. Be like, I really don't agree with where you're taking this, but I appreciate you sharing, you know, the information that you have right now and why you think this is the right decision, and I'm going to support you in any way that I can, because I know that's really difficult. Just try to stay, you know, helpful and positive as you figure out this whole new environment. You don't want to get into factions. You don't want to start fighting with each other. I think everyone can relate to this, and we'll end on this topic. I think in transportation, it's so easy to talk about, we could have conferences on it, why things don't work, right? It's so easy. We all go down those rabbit holes all the time. But let's really try to keep the conversations not on why it won't work or why, you know, it may not be working because so-and-so made this, like, how's it going to work? And what are the solutions to get us to that outcome? And let's try to change that narrative as well as you go on to, so that's just some of my advice. But it is very exciting, and I think I've talked to some of the decision makers and those who have helped make the decision to get you here, and how the advocates and philanthropy and elected officials and the private sector and the public sector have been talking about this for years. And then when the moment came that everybody was on the same page, they were able to get the legislation. It didn't happen with the snap of a finger, right? This is years and years and years and years of work, and even years just to get the legislation. And I know they just tweaked it like recently, right? A few weeks ago or a few months ago. It's always going to need that work. But don't let like some perfection or some way you think it has to go ruin the way that you look at it, and not allow you to change when you need to and help. You know, we talked in the very beginning about what you think you're going to build and then what actually gets built. And so think about that with NIDA. There's something, everyone in this room thinks what it's going to look like, but when I come back in 5 years, let's see what it is exactly, and it may not be exactly. So yeah, just stay together. So anyway, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.